Welcome back, everybody. It is November 1st of 2024, and this is episode 71 of What is on My Desk. So here we are, everybody, back for another one of my monthly workbench updates, and there has been progress. I got the last three kits I was working on completed. So that's the YB40, the Avro Lincoln, and the Kate, a Japanese bomber. All three are finished. This is currently the evening of October 30th. I'm filming this, and I literally just finished those models this morning, and I filmed all of that. What you're going to see here in a bit was just filmed this morning. So I have all of those three kits to show you being completed, and then I'll have the introduction of the next four kits I'm going to build, and you'll see I have some pretty special plans for one of those builds. We'll see that soon, what I'm looking at doing, hopefully I'm going to be doing. As well, I'm going to say a number of times throughout this video that I don't have any new products to show you, and that will be a lie. It wasn't until I started to organize the files and get ready to edit this video that I realized I did have new products to show you, so that will be also included. They're nothing spectacular, but there's enough that I'm going to introduce those two items to you. And to be perfectly honest, I can remember what one of them are. Oh yes, I remember two of them already. One of them that you're going to be introduced to at the beginning of this, you'll actually see later on when I introduce the new kits, and I completely forgot that that was included in this month's update. So on that note, let's get swung over. We'll take a quick look at those two new items that I'm later going to tell you don't exist, and then we'll jump in and take a look at the completed kits, and finally we'll wrap up with the introduction of the new ones I want to start building. And yeah, so let's get right into this. And as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. So a couple of new products to show you guys here. One of them was one that I've needed for a while, and one was sort of a spur of the moment purchase. I'll start with the one I've needed for a while. It's going to be for my upcoming live build of the Revell / Monogram B24D, and it's going to be done up in Coastal Command markings. So I required the weapons for that, and this is a Belcher bits kit, and I'm also using the Belcher bits oh, it's buried, the Belcher bits radar nose and ley light, the ASV conversion for the Liberator, and this is sort of a complementary aftermarket. It's Belcher bits 20, and it's the Mark 24 Fido and the sonobuoys. Now the interesting thing, the Fido was officially classified as a mine, but it was actually an acoustical torpedo. It was the first acoustical torpedo that the Allies had, especially an airdropped acoustical torpedo. So it includes that, as well as the sonobuoys. Instructions, typical with Belcher bits, they come on this like blue paper, kind of his signature move to use the blue, which I'm okay with. So it's got a bit of a history about the Fido, the Mark 24 mine. I'm not sure what Fido stood for, other than just a code name that they used. Honestly, it's probably because it was a homing torpedo, so it's a dog, so Fido probably would be my guess. But anyways, you've got a couple of different options with it, which we'll show you here in a second. So you get two torpedoes with two different sets of nose and two different optional tail pieces, plus two propellers, plus you get four of the sonobuoys. Now, it doesn't really show you where these weapons would be carried or how these weapons would be carried, and the painting instructions are just a little vague. But I mean, there isn't a lot of information out on these anyways. So we'll put the torpedo pieces aside. The sonobuoys are pretty simple, honestly. They look more or less like it's hard to say, like a gun sight almost. They're just little tubes of plastic tubes. I mean, this would be relatively easy to really scratch build, really. Just a little bit of plastic tube and mold it, but I don't have the skill to do much in terms of resin molding, so I have to buy them. So you do get 4 of these. I have seen some pictures online of kind of how these fit together and get hung. So I'm going to mount these in the forward bomb bay of the Liberator. You'll see there's an antenna on the top that isn't molded on here just because of size. The other thing that you need to realize, I'm not sure. Yeah, so it does. It's interesting. He talks about reference 2 and reference 1, but he only has one picture included. So anyways, basically what he's trying to explain, this picture here is not accurate. The smoke grenade, which is this piece here, this little additional small cylinder, would have been mounted near the top, which means this is the top. So this little antenna piece, he just tells you to make a little piece of 1.5 millimeter plastic rod and just attach that to the end. The antenna at the top was retractable, so you don't have to put it on, but you do need to put on that little tiny stub on the top for the little antenna. So that has to be added to it. Otherwise, these just get painted black. You know, you could weather them up a little bit, paint the smoke canister, whatever color you want, red, yellow. In here, they mention likely dark gray or green. Tape is a different color, and the smoke floats would have been black with white or yellow bands. So you can kind of come up with a really cool and interesting paint scheme for those if you want. But you do get 4 of them. I will, like I said, I'll hang all of them on the forward bomb bay for visual interest. Now the torpedoes themselves, now that you could tell these molds are starting to suffer from age. There's quite a bit of flash forming amongst them. The moldings themselves are nice and crisp. There's no issue with that. The body is showing a little bit of age. So a little bit of flash down here at the bottom, and there's this flash on the sides that needs to be cleaned up. But other than that, the moldings themselves are still very clean and crisp. Nothing you can complain about at all. Yeah, so you get 2 bodies. And then the noses are 2 different styles. You've got a standard kind of tube nose, similar to the picture here at the top. And then you have this one, which has a wooden casing around it. And this was a breakaway nose. So when it was airdropped and hit the water, that breakaway nose would, as it's called, break away and would dissipate a bunch of the energy of the drop and would stop it from diving too deep. It would only hit the surface. This was a technique pioneered by the Japanese on the attack on Pearl Harbor. And it's just that just the energy of breaking that wood off absorbed some of that momentum and caused it to not go down as deep, and it would stay shallow. And it was better to hit a surfaced ship when it was shallow versus going too deep. And then you've also got these, which are wooden breakaway tail pieces, and you can see how they are designed to just fit like that over the tail. So these are going to be some interesting. I'm going to try doing wood grain on here, and then the edges are painted up with just aluminum, as they were just like aluminum straps. So we kind of need to paint the whole thing up in like black, weather it a little bit, and then paint these up in wood and then slide these over and just have this really interesting look of the real natural wood over top of it. So it's also going to be a test for me to test wood grain, because I do have a couple of other models coming up that I got to use wood grain on. And then if I don't do it right, it's easy just to repaint them black or whatever. And then the propellers go in the back here, which is standard fare for torpedoes. So all of these are really good. These are the last little bits I needed to do that B-24. And I bought it from Ultracast, which is a local guy. He's in Guelph. I've been buying quite a bit through him just because he's close by. I mean, Belcher Bits is actually based in Ottawa. So, I mean, they're extremely close, but you can't just buy directly from him. He doesn't have like a storefront, and he does have an online website, but it involves like emailing and ordering through an email versus just ordering from a store. And Ultracast, which is, like I said, is down near Toronto, they're really easy to buy from. Online ordering, whatever, and the markup is not significant. I think to buy these directly from Belcher Bits was like $14.95 or $15.95, and buying them from Ultracast was $18. When you factor in the shipping costs, it's not much more to get it from Ultracast than it was to get it from a guy around the corner. Now, the other thing I bought was a set of decals. This is going to be for one of my B25s. I've been working with again, this is not a sponsored bit at all. Nothing on my channel is sponsored content, but I have been using Milanote quite a bit recently. It's an online free, well, there's a section you can use for free. Kind of a, how would I explain it without having read any of their advertising copy? Did I watch that? I did. Milanote is like a creative platform. So if you're doing any type of art or you know, renovations or painting, anything like that, it's a way to put all your ideas up on a page. I'll put a link here in a second to what I'm using it for. You can see how I've done it, but you can build up all of these different ideas and pictures and checklists, and you can connect things with arrows, and you can label things, and you can click into other things and get to other deeper ideas. So I've been using it. I'll put the link up here now. I've been using it to track some of my model builds and color coding for what I need to buy more product for, what I don't. Like you'll see down here, these ones I need to buy decal sheets from Above and Below Decals, and there's others where I have decals but no kits. And one of the things I needed was a set of decals for one of my B25Js. So I did a bit of research online. I found a couple of schemes I was interested in. Then I did the research to find out where you could get those decals, and I ended up purchasing a set from Ultracast because they actually had one of the ones I wanted. Now the other thing with Ultracast is he prices his decals based off market demand. So if there's a set of decals that is older and rarer and sort of in demand, he prices them higher than another set of decals that is just an off the shelf. So these were a little bit more expensive than retail, but because they're extremely hard to find, they were priced, I shouldn't say that. Because they were harder to find, they were priced a little bit more than market value, but they were still relatively inexpensive. I think these were less than $40, which for a good set of decals is not too bad. So they are from Bombshell Decals, and it is Corsica-based B25Js, which is Italy, and I love this scheme with the olive drab painted over the natural metal. I think it's a really interesting look, and it opens the door for a lot of really cool weathering things. And the main one I wanted was this one here, Stuff. Obviously it's got interesting nose art, and I like interesting nose art. There's also a lot of history for this aircraft that I found online. It had a different nose with lots of bomb missions on it, and then it was direct hit with flak. I actually found a picture online. Again, I'll put it up here, of the during the mission after it was hit by flak with all the damage to the nose. And the nose was replaced, and when the nose was replaced, this is the new nose art that was put on it. So there's no mission markings on this aircraft as it sits, but it did have a number of missions flown before the new nose art was put on. So that's that. So there's two aircraft. There's the one I'm doing, which is Stuff. The other one over here, so it's 4327680 is the one I want to build. The other one you got up here is 4327751, which was Margaret Mary Rustin, which was just called MMR, with a pinup on the nose and quite a few mission markings on the forward fuselage. I don't know if it says... It doesn't say how many missions, and I'm not going to count them right now, but it had an interesting and impressive set of mission markings on the side of it. So those are the two sets you get. The decals themselves are beautiful. So on the back, there's also a little bit of stencil layout. The decals themselves are beautiful. Really nicely printed. I believe they are printed by Cartograph, which is probably one of, if not the best decal printer out there for terms of quality and ability to print really good stuff. Interesting because it's stuff. Anyways, so you've got your general markings up here, your stencils, and then you've got MMR, and then you have Stuff, and then you have the national insignia and a couple of more stencils. Now, interestingly, the instructions down here do mention some of the markings. Decal 4. Oh, wait, hold on. 1, 2. Prop markings are 1 and 2. 4 go underneath 4, 10, and 11, which they mention are supposed to be going on the fuselage. I'm assuming that's bomb bay doors. But they don't, they give you 4, but there's only 2 sides, so I don't really understand. Unless you're giving you enough. They're giving you enough stencils for each aircraft. That's impressive. Decal 7's for landing gear. Decal 8 goes on the engine. But here's the interesting thing, where 3 and 5 are fuel. No, 5 is grounding. So 3 and 5 are markings for anyways, what I'm trying to get to in a roundabout, distracted way, there's no placement, decal placement for top or bottom. It doesn't even mention the decal on top of the wing. Oh, it does, 9. But it doesn't mention it down here. And it doesn't give you any of the decal locations for the fuel caps. So that's something you're going to have to kind of figure out on your own while you're doing it. Also be aware the camo pattern on stuff is very generic, where this is wavy, but as I said, there are pictures of this airframe. If you Google the serial number, B25J43-27680, you're able to find the pictures of this pre-nose change. There's a picture of the aircraft in color with the new art, but there's the pictures of it prior to that nose art, and you can get a good look at what the camo patterns are if you look at those. So that's good to know. But anyways, you have to do a little bit of research on your own just to figure out where some of these stencils are supposed to go. Luckily, there's enough resources on the internet. I'm sure anybody could figure it out. I mean, I would probably just end up using either, I don't think the monogram kits include all those stencils, but the other option is just using one of, like, you know, HK's model instructions off of scale mates, like their 148th or their 132nd, and just use that as a reference to find the decal placements. So it's not the end of the world. Not perfect, but not the end of the world. So anyways, those are the 2 new additions I have. This one will be used very similarly, very soon-ish, as I do plan to get that live build started, hopefully before the end of October. These are going to get put away because I don't know when I will end up using those. So on that note, let's swing across, take a look at the progress on the kits. And as I'm filming this a lot earlier in the month than the kit progress section, I have actually no idea at this point what those look like. So let's jump ahead and surprise us both on where I am with those kits. So here we are back at the desk, and as I mentioned in the intro, I do not have any new products to introduce to you guys today, but I do have progress. And as I mentioned, I finished those 3 kits that I was previously working on. So I'm going to take a look at those 3 first, and then we'll jump over and take a look at what I'm building in the next round. So only because it's sitting right here, I will start off with the Hasegawa Kate. If I can remember the exact designation, because I never can. It is the, Nakajima B5N2 Type 97 Kate, built by Hasegawa in 1/48 scale. Now, if you've been following along and you remember when I first kind of introduced this kit, I built it pretty much out of the box with the exception of the Wolfpack aftermarket wing folds. So they included the inserts for the wing folds, as well as the supports that hold the wings up. I believe, if memory serves, this actually came with the kit when I bought it. I picked this kit up at a model show a number of years ago, and I believe the wing folds came with it. If not, I picked them up shortly after I bought it. a lot of times when if there's something specific I need from an online retailer, I'll tend to browse around things like Henats or Squadron or Sprue Brothers. If I need one thing that I can only get from one of those online retailers, I tend to browse around to see if there's anything else either on sale or any other aftermarket that's reasonably priced that fits with another kit I'm building, and that just amortizes out the shipping. It makes a lot more sense to pay, $20 shipping for 4 items than it does to pay $12 shipping for 1 item. And if it's stuff that I'll eventually use or stuff that I do want, then I'm not buying stuff just for the sake of buying something. I'm picking something up that I will want and or need that I can amortize out shipping. And so that's what that was. That was either an add-on that I did to get the shipping costs to make sense, or it came with the kit, because it wouldn't have been something I picked up locally at a local hobby shop or anything. So anyways, this is the completed kit. It looks really, really good. It's a lot larger than I thought it was. My zeros over there. I have a 1/48th Tamiya Gecko and the 1/48th. Who made that zero? Tamiya Zero, I believe it was. So this is going to look really nice on the shelf along with those, and that's why I built it with the wings folded. Exactly why you would fold the wings on an airplane. It fits better. Overall, it went really well. The Hasegawa kit has lots of detail in it. Beautiful interior. It's a little hard to see a lot of it with the wings folded, but you got to do what you got to do. But yeah, lots of detail in the cockpit. It's really nice. One of the nice features that they included, I don't know if I can get it yet. It included a version of the cockpit with all of the canopies closed, and then the separate pieces to build it with the canopy opened, and that gives you a really realistic look with it, because scale wise, right, this plastic's a lot thicker than standard, so if you tried to chop this up and overlap them the way they normally would, it wouldn't fit together. So this looks really, scale accurate for a closed cockpit, and then they made the compromises they need to make for an open cockpit, but it saves a ton of work if you want to do that. The engine is beautiful in there. It looks really good, just enough detail to make it pop, not overly detailed. For example, a lot of the modern kits, your exhaust stacks would be part of your engine build-up, but you don't see any of it when it's assembled, whereas here your engine goes in and then these just glue in from the bottom. So you have enough detail to make it look good, but not extra detail that just ends up driving up your final price of the kit. I get the impression there's a lot of kit manufacturers that add detail to kits, stuff like back here in the fuselage, all the formers and radios and stuff you're never ever going to see, and all it does is drive the parts count up and look good in CAD drawings and makes them sell kits, but in reality you're spending more for stuff you'll never see. So I find this is kind of the sweet spot for a kit. Enough detail that it looks great, not so much that it has to be ridiculously overpriced and out of reach of the majority of your average model builders. The only thing I didn't do on this, they included clear wingtip lights. You're supposed to cut out the plastic and glue the clear wingtip light in. I can never make those look good. I always end up cutting the openings too big or too small, and the clear parts don't fit right. You end up painting them red or green anyways. So just doing the standard, what I usually do is paint like a chrome and then paint the clear colors over top. Perfectly adequate for this size scale. When you get into like a 1/32 or a 1/24, it's a bit more important. But for this scale, keeping them as a solid plastic and just using chrome and clear, more than enough to pull it off. The only downside I had to this was the decals. And the first decal went on okay, but the second one I put on completely shattered. And you can see here, this stripe doesn't look quite perfect, and that's because that decal completely shattered when I tried to pull it off the backing paper. So at that point, I left it on the backing paper, let it dry, and then I sealed all the decals with the micro scale liquid decal solution and let that dry. And then I just cut out the decals really close, like you would with, say, a home printed set, to keep the carrier film to a minimum. And after that, it worked out okay. I still had some issues, especially with the Himarus. I think I pronounced that right, the Himarus. The roundels, the Japanese markings. Fuselage wasn't too bad. The wings, I had a lot of issues with them cracking. I actually lost a piece. You can kind of see here, I had to fix it with a bit of color. My red wasn't perfect, but hey, battle damage it was in the war, whatever. But yeah, you had issues like that, cracking down inside here. I tried to clean it up a little bit. I didn't go too crazy with it because I didn't want that red to be obviously different, but some issues with the decals, especially the big ones. But once I got that second carrier film on, all of these other small ones went down beautifully. No real issues at all. Even these big ones here went down okay. A little bit of issues, but that's user error, not decal problems. The wing fold kit, by the way, went in really, really nice. You got to do a little bit of sanding on the wings to scale it down, but once you get these inserts in, some super glue, some putty, some Mr. Surfacer, it cleaned up really, really nice. Lots of good detail. I think it really makes it pop. It looks so much better. So much better like that. So yeah, overall, super happy with this. It's going to look really, really good on the shelf beside all of my other Japanese kits. And yeah, can't complain at all. If you're looking for a fun to build, I mean, you could probably put one of these together in a weekend. You know, it would not take much to put this together if you really put your mind to it and just worked. I had all the other kits going on and et cetera, et cetera. But no, it was a great kit. Really like it. It's going to look good on the shelf. So stay tuned for part 2 of the time lapse for this one. That should be coming out soon. And yeah, just be a second. I got to go grab the other models because they're big and they're behind me on the shelf. So I'll get that set up. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Okay, back with the next one, and it's a big one. It's probably the biggest kit I have finished in a while. Seem to have some shmoo on the wing, so I'm gonna just try to clean that up a little bit here before I... Anyways, yeah, so the next one we're gonna talk about is a big one. It is my 1/48 scale Lancaster that I have converted into the Lincoln. Now, if you've been following along, you would have seen the updates on these as I was working away on it. It doesn't even fit the frame. I mean, this thing is like, I think it's close to three feet from wingtip to wingtip. I mean, I actually have, you know, there's a 15-inch ruler. So it's that's a 15-inch wing. So yeah, it's 30 inches. That's almost 3 feet from wingtip to wingtip. So it is not a tiny model. Now this was the 1/48 scale Tamiya Lancaster. It was the recently re-released version of their Lancaster, which included some of the extra parts. And I used the Paragon Lincoln conversion. Now that's almost unobtainium these days. I purchased this many years ago. I actually started building this kit probably back in the 2010 time frame, 2010. I started this and I quickly realized I was over my limit. I was beyond my capabilities. I had started something that I knew that I would not be able to finish adequately. So I was smart and I put it away. And then recently I decided to pull it out, work on it again, and get it finished. Now it's by far, it's not perfect. By any means, I guess I should say. It's not perfect by any means. There's lots of problems with it, partially because I'm still not very good at rescribing. I tried to do some rescribing on this and it just failed. My initial plan was to completely rescribe the airframe and it did not turn out anywhere as much as I'd liked it. I'm not good at rescribing. I don't know, I really, really have to practice that because it's a skill I really should have, but I am not good at it. And then because I had started building this many years ago when I really wasn't ready for it, there were some compromises I had to make today in order to finish it appropriately. So yeah, it's not perfect. And I mean, I'm not going to point out the mistakes that I don't like. I think overall it looks really good as a, 3-foot model, as I like to call them, which this literally is a 3-foot model. But I usually build my models as I call them 3-foot models. As long as you're standing 3 feet away, looking at them, they look great. And I think this one really, really looks good. I put it on the shelf beside that Lancaster Mark II I have, and it just looks astounding. I used some Edward photo etch. Like I said, my plan when I initially got this was to just go like absolutely bat crazy on it and make it fully detailed. I'd done some work on the interior. So there's interior detail in there with the open door. So you can look down inside and see the internal structure and all the things that, the ammo trays that run to the back of the plane. I planned all of that and then eventually realized that was just beyond my skills. And I'm glad I didn't, because this is a big airplane and the resin makes it really heavy. and making all of those little, it would have been so much. And I mean, I think for a vacuum form, some vacuum form work, which I'm again not very comfortable with, I think a lot of it turned out good. This nose area turned out really nice. The where the resin nose and the fuselage meets looks good. That plug that's inside that rear fuselage, it's pretty hard to see, where that plug is unless you really know what you're looking for. And I mean, obviously the fact that the plug has engraved panel lines and the rest of the model doesn't help. But yeah, it turned out really good. There's a few issues that like I said, I wish I had taken just a little bit more time with. But I mean, I said I don't have a lot of time, and I wanted to get this finished. It's been on the book, like I said, almost 15 years now I've been working on this. I needed to get it done. I needed to move on. So I made some compromises. The markings on this kit are a mix of custom made ones, basically. I mean, I shouldn't say that. The vast majority of the decals you're looking at are from the Tamiya kit. The roundels, the walkways, all of that stuff is right from Tamiya. The only thing I really did on my own was the aircraft serial number, FM300. And FM300 was the first and only Canadian-built Lincoln, with Victory Aircraft building the Lancaster Mark 10s. The plan had been to produce the Lincoln to continue the war. When the war in Germany ended and they realized that they would not need the Lincolns in the Pacific as the American forces were getting closer and closer to the Japanese homeland, they realized that they did not need as long a range as a bomber as was initially envisioned. So between that and the fact that you had the atomic bombs kind of ending the war in the Pacific as well in August of 45, it came to the realization that there was actually no requirement or need for Victory Aircraft to build the Lincoln in Canada. So one was completed, it made a few flights, and then it was scrapped, and all of the rest of the Lincoln parts that were on the production line were just scrapped in situ. So no part of this airframe exists today, which is a shame because it's a beautiful aircraft and it would be really cool to have kept around, but what are you gonna do? So it's painted up like that. I used some online, there's only 2 photos online that I know of FM300. So using those along with some other references, I did my best to get the camo pattern right and the, the markings and all the details. You'll see there's no squadron codes on it because the aircraft was never assigned to a squadron. So it just had generic markings on it. No specific unit markings or anything was ever painted on it. The only thing I did that really shouldn't have been there is the gun barrels. This aircraft, as far as I can tell, never carried any actual guns. They had the turrets installed, but no actual guns. But I'm like, no, I'm putting gun barrels on it. It looks really cool, especially this top turret with the 20mm cannons. Looks really, really cool. So I wanted to portray it like that. The tail turret it's actually the later style tail turret, which does come in the Tamiya kit, but this particular one has a radar on the end of it, which was common on the Lincoln. And as far as I can tell by looking at pictures, it was also fitted to the Canadian-built Lincoln, from what I can tell. And you can't use that. That comes in the Paragon conversion, but you are unable to mount that to the kit turret because of the way it's designed. So I ended up having to use the vacuum form turret that came in the Paragon kit. So basically you've got the tail turret, a plug, the top turret, the nose, the perspex, the engines, propellers, and the wingtip extensions. And also there are, I almost broke the pitot tube off. I did break the pitot tube off. Great. There's extensions on the rudders. If you look the bottom of this is so hard to move around and show anything. It's so big. The bottom of the rudders are squared off. That's also another Lincoln specific mod. So there's a little resin plug that you put into the bottom of the rudders to give it that squared off look. Now, a lot of people have seen the squared off rudders, and that's because the RAF, the Battle of Britain Memorial Flights Lancaster, PA, I think it's like 47 something. Anyways, it, back in the day, had its rudders replaced with rudders from an Avro Lincoln. So the BBMF Lancaster actually has the squared off Lincoln rudders installed. So a lot of people have seen those, but might not realize that they are technically Lincoln specific. But anyways, that's just a little piece of trivia for you. I'm just gluing this pitot tube back on because, of course, I managed to snap it off. I knew I would. I'm pretty sure I'm also going to snap off quite a few of these blades over the years as I move it around, but that's the problem with big models that have a lot of super glue on them. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so that is my 1/48 scale Tamiya Lancaster converted into an Avro Lincoln using the Paragon set and finished as the one and only Canadian built Lancaster. Again, very happy with this. It looks really good on the shelf. I think at some point I'm probably going to try to get this out to Capcom, the IPMS convention here in Ottawa. I think they're 2025 is the next year they hold it. So I'm going to probably bring it out to that just because I don't expect to win anything by any means, but it's different and it's cool, and I like different and cool. So I'll probably end up bringing this out and putting it on display at the next Capcom, potentially even at the local hobby shop if they have a space big enough for it. I really like to get people to see this because, again, it's something you don't see very often. Now, that being said, I have to put this back on the shelf. It's too big to leave at the desk, and I'm too afraid of knocking it down or breaking it if I put it somewhere. So give me 2 seconds. I'm going to put this away, and we'll come back and talk about the last kit. Okay, so the last and final kit I've been working on is the 1/48 scale YB40, once again converted using a Paragon conversion set. Now this one I used the YB40 conversion set to turn it into a YB40. Now, a little bit of a backstory, if you don't know what the YB40 is, it was an attempt to turn the B-17 into a gunship. The formations of B-17s were being decimated by fighters over occupied Europe. The German fighters were just knocking these down left, right, and center. Things like you look at the Regensburg mission where they lost, I think it was something like 10% of the attacking force was shot down. It's just, those are losses that they could not sustain. So the idea was, let's build a gunship. So the YB40 was thought up from that sort of process. And the idea was, you just load it with guns. So you have the standard machine guns that you would have on a B-17F. However, there is a chin turret, a remote controlled chin turret on it, which later on was adopted and used on the B-17G model. So that was added to the YB40. The rear radio operators area, instead of having had a turret installed instead of the single machine gun that was normally fitted there. So this was a Martin style top turret, similar to what you would see on things like the B-26 and stuff like that, the Marauder. They had that installed. The waist gun positions now have twin 50s. They had hydraulically boosted mounts and twin 50s on each side. And the tail turret had a slightly larger, make sure I don't break any gun barrels off, had a slightly larger perspex for better visibility. Now this was kind of what eventually led into the Cheyenne modification with the pumpkin turret, but this was sort of an in-between a standard B-17F and the later style Cheyenne tail turret. So all of these mods were added, and in total now with these mods, you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 50 caliber machine guns, and where they would normally have carried the bombs in the bomb bay, those were turned into racks, and you had extra ammunition boxes. So as the gunners would run out of ammunition, they could bring out more ammunition boxes and restock and just keep on firing. In theory, it made so much sense. These things would then embed themselves in the existing formations and add extra firepower to the formations and help protect them. But there were two problems. I shouldn't say problems. There were two things that eventually brought down the demise of the YB40. The first and the most important of them was the introduction of things like the P-51 Mustang, the long-range escort fighter. As the P-47 started getting larger drop tanks, and as the P-51 came around with its longer range, augmented by drop tanks, you were able to have escorts stay with the formations all the way to their target and back. So the requirement for the YB40 wasn't as big. Second, which combined with the P-51s was kind of the end of the YB40, the aircraft was heavier. Initially it wasn't. So as you first formed up and flew into the target, you know, it could embed itself in the formation, everything would be fine. But once all of the other bombers dropped their bombs, the YB-40 usually still had lots of ammunition left, and the weight of all of the extra machine guns, you've added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 extra machine guns. Like, that's a couple of 100 pounds of extra, machine guns. And you add on all of the extra, the weight of the turret, the weight of these mounts, all the extra ammunition cans, all the extra, if you didn't burn through too much ammunition, all the extra ammunition you were carrying. And suddenly these aircraft were significantly heavier than the bombers that have just released all of their bombs, and they couldn't keep up with the formations. And so the only solution was to have the entire formation slow down, which would have made it even more of a target for flak and fighters, which was kind of the opposite of the whole point. So by embedding the gunships in the formation, you were actually causing the formations to be even more of a target. So that, combined with the fighters, the long-range escorts, they just said, no, we're done. So I think 12 or 13 of these were made. And then after a while, when they realized they were no longer required in the combat and they weren't really going to help, they were sort of relegated to be squadron hacks, and eventually a lot of them were returned to the United States and used as trainers. They were classified as a TB-40, and a lot of them were used to train new B-17 crews before they headed overseas. There's a lot of good pictures of these in the training role in the continental US after they were removed from combat. So that's sort of the history on the YB-40, and I wanted one because they're cool and different, and I just explained how I like cool and different. So this is the ancient Revell F model kit using the Paragon. So the Paragon conversion gives you the extra perspex for the tail gun position, the double machine guns, the top turret, the chin turret, and it also includes the different nose perspex, because the F1, which I still have here somewhere, the nose cone that comes in the monogram F has the holes for the 2 machine guns in the nose, and this version did not have that. So they included and the G model had a different nose perspex. It was slightly blunter, and the bottom was more tapered, which allowed those machine guns on the turret on the bottom to elevate a lot higher than they could with the F model perspex. So you have a vacuum form perspex as well. So you have that, the top turret, the tail turret piece, plus all the machine gun barrels. It gives you enough machine gun barrels for all of it. So I actually replaced all of the machine gun barrels from all the kit parts, even the top turret and ball turret, everything has new Paragon resin machine gun barrels. And then the markings are a combination of, I used Kit World's stencils for things like the walkways and the national insignias and all of the, the stencils. And then I did my own masks using my Cricut for things like the aircraft serial number, the fuselage codes. There's the mission markings here on the nose for the little machine gun painted on. I made masks for all of that, and I painted all of that up by hand using the masks. And I modeled it after a 425736, which was officially called Tampa Tornado. And I used that one specifically because there is a reference for it. This is the Osprey book, 303rd Bomb Group. There's the book. And in it, in the color profile section, they do have a color plate of this particular airframe, which is a really good reference for a few details I needed to know. You can also see how the tail turret looks a little different between a YB-40 and the B-17F. The windows are just a little bit more bigger to give a bit more visibility. So that was allowing me to get quite a bit of references for stuff like that. There are some other pictures in here. I don't have them handy. I'd really have to dig around, but there's a few pictures online, and there's a few other references in this book specifically that talk about the YB-40. And I was able to come up with something that looks somewhat accurate. There's a really good picture online of this aircraft near the end of its term overseas, sitting at a base. And I kind of picked a time frame that's sort of in between everything, sort of right at the end of its missions before it was retired from service, because some of the squadron codes changed and some of the other things changed. And like everything, I wasn't trying for like a show quality model here. I just wanted something that would look really good on the shelf. And using this old Revell F, there's a lot of issues with this kit. So I kind of, again, compromises were made. I think overall it looks good. There's one part of this build, one part that, looking at it, I wish I could go back and do differently. I'm not going to mention what it is. That's just my own opinion and my feelings. There's one really big glaring thing that just kind of pisses me off every time I look at it. And it was just, I jumped the gun at one point, and by the time I realized what I had done, it was too late to go back and fix it, and I had to live with it. But anyways, this is really cool. Like I said, all the part 2 time lapses for all 3 of these kits will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. I got to go through and finish editing everything and get them up, but they will be coming out, and you'll get to see the whole process of this from the primer right through to the end. All the part 1s are out for these. You can find them in the time-lapse playlist. Part 1 for the Kate, the YB40, and the Lincoln have been up for a few weeks now. But it's going to take some time to get the part 2 version finished. So stay tuned for those if you want to see it. But yeah, very happy with how this turned out. It looks really cool. I love the painting on it. I think this is one of the better paint schemes I've ever pulled off on an aircraft. It looks like a B-17 sitting in formation. It looks so cool. So happy with how that turned out. So yeah, those are the 3 kits that I have recently finished. Now, I'm filming this on October 30th. I literally just finished both of these. I painted the ADF football on the YB40, and I literally glued the propellers on the Lincoln today. So I just finished these kits literally about an hour before I sat down to film this. So I have 0 progress to show you on any of the new kits because I haven't actually started them yet. But I will introduce you to what I'm going to be building. I also need to now clean up a bunch of crap over here that's taking up space and I don't need, and I need to get out of the way. So just give me 2 seconds. So now I've got things cleaned up a little bit over here. I can start to introduce that next round of kits I'm going to be building. So we'll start with the one I have on the top of the pile, which is the Revell / Monogram F-14A Tomcat. I have a little bit of aftermarket. No, sorry, I have no aftermarket for this one. I have aftermarket for the D model, which I'm not building right now. So this is the old Monogram kit. I built one of these. Yeah, the initial copyright that's stamped into the inside of the fuselage is 1993. I built one of these when I was a kid. Don't even know what happened. Oh, you know what? I know exactly what happened to it. I would have been probably in, wouldn't be too long after this released. I was probably in grade 4 or grade 5. So we're probably talking about 94, 95. I built one of these and I was painting the nose cone and I screwed up the nose cone. Oh, look at that, it's already off. I screwed up the nose cone painting really, really bad and I needed to strip it, and me being, like 11 years old and not knowing any better, I dropped it into a jar of thinner, thinking it would cause the paint to come off, and it completely melted the plastic nose cone. So this thing sat on my shelf for a little while, and I think I eventually just started playing with it and broke it and got rid of it. Anyways, so that's the story of my only experience building a Tomcat model in my entire life. So this is going to be a fun one. My plan for this is to basically build it out of the box with some minor modifications. And those modifications are basically going to be 2 things. Yeah, 3. 1, the landing gear is going to be built retracted. So I'm going to have to really be careful and get all of the gear doors glued in place and sanded and cleaned up so it looks good. 2, I want to build it not carrying any missiles. So this particular piece here with the missiles molded onto it, I'm going to have to do a little bit of surgery and slice the missile off and then clean up any holes that might appear along the bottom of the missile mounts. So I got to do that. And finally, my final plan for this, I don't have the decals out right now, but I'm going to be using Caracal decals for the F-14 prototypes. I'm going to be building this as prototype number, I want to say it was 5, either 3 or 5. It might be 3. But anyways, it was the airframe that did the asymmetric wing testing. So it had, I can't really show you because everything's still on the sprue, but it basically had one wing swept all the way back and one wing out straight. And they basically had to prove to the Navy that the aircraft was flyable in a case that the swept wing mechanism failed and only one wing would come back forward. So it had to show that it was not only flyable, but that they could land it on the carrier. So I want to be building up that one. So it's going to have the gloss gray over gloss white. It's going to have a bunch of red panels on it. It comes with a pilot figure. It's supposed to come with a pilot figure. Oh, yeah, he's over here. So it comes with a pilot figure. I'm going to use another pilot out of another kit to put a backseater. They're going to be wearing orange flight suits for test pilots, and I'll have this mounted on a stand. It's going to look really cool. The other thing I'm going to do, which is directly from photographic evidence of that flight, on the right wing, so you can imagine if you had one wing back and one wing out, the right wing was creating significantly more lift than the left wing. So the right wing actually had its spoilerons, or spoilers, spoilerons, because they don't have ailerons. The F-14 doesn't have ailerons. They use spoilers to roll, so they're called spoilerons. I'm going to have them slightly deployed. So that's going to involve me doing a little bit of surgery on this kit, and I'm going to do my best to make sure I don't ruin it. But I basically have to cut the flaps and all of these spoilers out, and then rebuild these little sections that stick out. And then I'm going to glue the flaps. Sorry, this is the bottom of the wing. This is the top of the wing. So I'm going to have to cut out from this wing the flaps and the spoilers. And then I'm going to glue the flaps to the bottom half of the wing, and then glue the top half of the wing and leave that space, and then correct any of these little things that are like missing. All these little tiny little strips I'm going to have to glue back into place. And then I'm just going to have them the slightest amount raised, just enough to counteract that asymmetric lift. So that's another thing I'm going to have to do. That's going to be fun. I'll probably do that first. That way, if I completely screw it up, I can just throw this into a corner and deal with it later. Anyways, that'll be the first thing I do on this kit. So that's the plan for that one. Like I said, be done up Caracal decals as prototype. I'm going to say prototype 3 that did the asymmetric wing test, mounted on a stand. It's going to look spectacular when it's done. So that's the first one. The second one I'm going to be doing is the Kinetic 5A. Again, I've had this for a while. I picked this up used, I believe, off of Facebook. Yeah. Okay, nothing else in there. I'm pretty sure I got this used off Facebook, but the guy I bought it off of had a habit of, I bought a few models off of him. You can see the box was all like crushed and folded up, where he like disassembled the boxes and folded them. He stored the boxes in one place and the kits somewhere else, which is why everything was like labeled the way they are. Anyways, so yeah, this is the Kinetic F5A. I've built a few Kinetic kits in the past. I've built their Alpha Jet. I've built their tracker. Actually, I think that might be it. Yeah, I think it's just the Alpha Jet and the tracker that I built. The kits are really, really nice. They're a little finicky at times. The fit can be a little difficult, but overall they seem to be really easily assembled, and they look really good when they're done. So I'm going to be building this completely out of the box, and I'm going to be finishing it off as an RCAF CF5 that is currently sitting in the Aviation Museum here in Ottawa in a 434 Balloonos Squadron color scheme. But it's going to be like the Ghost scheme, so it's going to be like 3 or 4 different shades of gray and like a splintery camo. So it's going to be really, really cool when I'm done. I believe these aren't any extra. This is just the exhaust stacks that I believe, because he cut these bags down, he cut the sprues down to be smaller, to tuck away into a smaller space. So I believe those came from the kit. He somehow has replacement canopies, and I'm not entirely sure why. My guess is because of the way, I don't know. I don't know why he ended up with a replacement canopy, but he does have a replacement canopy in here. This actually has 2 canopies, and this one only has 1. Yeah, anyways, I have what looks like the one that came in the kit and a replacement, so I have that. And he also included an avionics F5 seat. It's from an F5E, I believe they're the same. I haven't done any research on that yet. But yeah, so this we built completely out of the box. I plan to build it with the wheels down. I hate putting this thing back because I'm always worried of crap falling out the bottom. I should tape that box shut. But anyways, on the ground, cockpit open. Obviously the wheels will be down. Flaps and slats will be down. I'm going to basically have everything hanging out. So it's going to look kind of like this is how I'm finishing the kit. It's going to have the 434 squadron. This is exactly how it looks. Actually, you know what? I have the instructions right here. Let me double check. Yeah. So this is Warplane Heritage. Yeah, so this is the one I'm building. It's got the 434 squadron, and it's got the red 63 on the nose for the aggressors. As it sits in the museum, it doesn't have the 434 squadron band, but I'm putting the squadron band on it. So it's going to have the blue 434 squadron blue nose band. It's going to have the red 63 on the nose, and then it's going to be this overall. It's a 3-tone gray, not a 4-tone gray. So it's blue gray, gray, and gray. FS 35237, 36307, and 36251. All in these bands across it. So it's going to wrap around false canopy and refueling probe with canopy open. And I'm going to put drop tanks on it and potentially some rockets or something. I'm not sure yet. So it's going to look really cool. I have an F5E I've built, but again, this will be the RCA F1. So this will look really good on the shelf, kind of with the F18 and everything else I have. And so that's going to be a nice addition. The other one, I kind of have them split a little bit. I'm building 3 main kits and a 4th bonus kit. So I'll show you the bonus kit last. I got to make sure I don't lose those. I already put it on the shelf before I introduced it. This is the monogram, or the Revell monogram, however you want to call it, the A6E Intruder. So this is the other one I'm going to be building, and this is the kit I'm going to be robbing the other pilot from for the F-14. So this one will not have pilots in it. I'll have the cockpit open, wheels down, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I've built the EA6B in the past. I've built 2 of them before. One when I was a kid, which I have still. It was hanging up at my dad's house for years, and it's currently sitting in the closet waiting to be stripped and rebuilt. And then I have another one I did up in the Desert Storm scheme sitting on the shelf, which I'll get to eventually in my previously built models. But this one is the A6, and I've never actually built an A6 before, so this is exciting. I've always wanted to build an A6, and I figured if I'm doing the F-14, I might as well do an A6 as well and kind of do a joint one. And I have enough space on the shelf over here with my F-15 and my A10 to squeeze in both the A6 and my F-14 on the same shelf. So that solves that problem. I'm going to be using some aftermarket decals. I believe it's Fighter Town decals I'm using. I have it all in a reference book somewhere. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyways, I'm going to be doing it up in a post-Vietnam scheme. It's got some green details on it. I plan to use, just load it up with the CBUs, the cluster bombs. So that's kind of the plan for that. Triple ejector racks, cluster bombs, fuel tanks, all that fun stuff. It's a monogram kit, so it's got raised panel lines, but I mean, I'm going to live with it. I think it's going to look really cool, painted, weathered. Like I said, with the cockpit open, the boarding ramp open, all that fun stuff. So looking forward again to building that, and it's going to look really, really cool with the rest of my collection. Because I'll have, yeah, you know, I'm starting to get a decent collection of like modern fighters and stuff. So yeah, we'll see how long these ones take me to complete. Probably going to take me a while, I'm not going to lie. Those are the 3 kits that I'm going to be building regularly. Now the last kit I'm going to be building, I'll show you now. My eventual plan, and I've been talking about this forever and I still haven't done it, is a build on a live stream. I'll try to do a live build about once a month for about an hour and a half, depending on how much work I can do. And it'll be just like this. I'll come down here, I'll set it up, the camera, I'll be live on YouTube, and I will be building a kit. And the kit I plan to build live is this one. This is the Revell 148 scale B24D. I have quite a bit of aftermarket for this one. I've been collecting bits and pieces for a long, long time. and I have, so anyways, this is the kit as it shows up in the box right here. And my plan, using this along with the aftermarket that is sitting right here and some aviology decals, is I'm going to build this up as a Coastal Command RAF, RAF Coastal Command aircraft. So, and it's a big plane, and I actually don't know where I'm going to put this. I currently have very limited shelf space, so I really don't know where this is going to go when I'm finished, but I'm doing it anyways. But yeah, like these kits are not small. I mean, that is a big honking kit. So yeah, that's the plan for this one. So I have a little bit of work to do on this to make it look good, and I'll explain why as I go through some stuff. The main thing I need to do is I need to detail in the bomb bay a little bit. There's some frames, because I'm going to be building with the bomb bays open and some weapons in there, but there's some details down in here in this central bulkhead. There's supposed to be some extra supports that don't exist in here, and there's supposed to be a roof to the bomb bay that doesn't exist in here. So first thing I'll have to do is cut a roof. When you put the interior pieces in, I'll have to cut a piece of plastic to go along the bottom of that wing and create a roof. And then from there, I'll have to start adding in some of the supports that live in here so that when you close it all up, it doesn't just have this big giant opening in the bomb bay. It actually has some of the detail that's going to make it look good. So other than that, the other conversions I'm going to have to play with, the big one is the Belcher bits, BB-16, Dumbo radome, and ley light. And this is kind of what turns a Liberator into a Coastal Command Liberator. And the ley light is a searchlight that lives under the wing and was controllable by the crew to point it towards U-boats while they were surfaced. And the Dumbo radar is a radar that actually fits right under here, right about there on the nose, but it involves some modification of the clear part, and I'm always a little worried when I have to do modifications to the clear parts. But if you look at the way the clear part kind of hangs down here versus where the Dumbo radar sits, you need to chop off the bottom part of the clear part, and then it kind of lives like that. So there's some modification. I got to do this. I got to chop some pieces off and sand it back and clean this up and make sure all of this is going to actually fit together properly at the end. And the worst of it is I can't really glue any of this to really glue it together until after I glue the fuselage together. So it's just going to be a lot of taping and fitting and sanding and cleaning and making sure all of that goes together easily. The ley light shouldn't be too hard. I can glue that onto the fuselage, onto the wing, I should say, afterwards, kind of just before painting. So that's the one conversion that's going to add the spotlight onto the wing and the radar on the nose. The other thing I have is the Wild Sal resin, which has actually gone out of business since I picked this up. Wild Sal resin, and they have the for fuselage mounted rocket wings. So these actually mount down in here on the side of the fuselage and add rocket launchers underneath it on this forward fuselage. So that I have to do, and this also includes a few other, the rockets, the pods, includes a tail turret because the Coastal Command B-24s used a British style turret off of a Halifax. So I have that. So there's quite a few pieces in here of resin I'm going to have to clean up and play with. And then you've got the tail turret perspex. The top one I think is the same as what comes in the kit. So we'll see. And it comes with another canopy, and I don't know why it comes with another canopy because I feel like the kit canopy is better than this. But anyway, so this is going to give me the nose radar and the spotlight. This one is going to give me the nose mounted rocket pods and the British style tail turret. And then the final piece of aftermarket I have here is Belcher bits. What number is this? BB-20, which is the torpedoes and the sonobuoys. And these are the British, or it's called a Mark 24 mine, but it was actually a homing torpedo. So that is what I'm going to have up inside the bomb bay, as well as some of the sonobuoys. And yeah, that along with the aviology decals is going to give me a really, really nice looking Coastal Command Liberator. And I actually have the Wing Leader book. It's the first Wing Leader book I ever bought, but I bought it specifically for, this is just Coastal Command. But here we go. This right there is what I'm building. Ley light, Dumbo radar, nose mounted rocket pods with the open bomb bays, and you'll have the Fido torpedo and everything else. So the few things I still need to worry about, you can also, there's a good shot up here of the rocket launchers mounted. That one does have the radar still, so you can see where that goes. Like I said, I'm gonna have this also built with the wheels down, sitting on the ground. Like I said, bomb bay door open, rear crew hatch will be open. But there's some really good pictures in here that cover things like those rocket pods and the ley lights, and you can see they've got all these antennas around the rear fuselage, how the side gunner's window looks. There's some other, here we go, another close-up of the Dumbo radar, a close-up of the Yagi antennas, which I will have to make for this kit. Again, you got some of the detail here on the Yagi radars, and there's another couple of pictures. Here's a really nice close-up of those wing-mounted rocket launchers, so you can make sure you get all of the angles correct. Yeah, and there's another good shot there. Here's another picture here. This has the later style radar and the later style waist guns, and that's how mine is going to be. It's not going to have this early style modified one. It will have the later style. But you'll see mine will have the Dumbo radar, the rocket launchers, the late style, and there's the British style Halifax turret. Yeah, so you got some details between the details I can find in this book and the details I have from the decal sheet. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time going through and making this look really good. And outside of having to do the bomb bays by hand, all the other modifications, I have all of this aftermarket to make it look good. So like I said, this is what I plan to do on a live stream. So, there'll be one video is probably just going to be me working on the interior parts and building up that internal framework, and cleaning up cockpit parts. And then I've still got to clean up all this resin and get all that done and the modifications and then I'll do some painting off camera, but the main construction and everything that's not airbrush related will be done on camera in a live stream. That's the plan. So fingers crossed that happens. So that is where we are. I actually have no idea how long I've been sitting here talking, but I'm getting a little thirsty, so I think it's time for a break. So there we go. That is the entirety of my November What's on My Desk update. As always, if there's anything you want to see in more detail, let me know. I can send pictures. I can do a follow-up video. There will be, as I said, time lapses will be coming out for the part 2 of those 3 kits, and the construction on these kits will start up soon, so you'll start to see some progress. And I'm hoping in November is when I'm going to start that live stream for the building. So on that note, I am officially going to wrap all of this up. So thank you everybody who has lasted to this point of the video. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.